Now, I'm a sports medicine doctor down at Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City, and during the day I take care of people's aches and pains of all across their body. But in the evenings and weekends, I've built a whole exercise prescription around getting people moving. And the title of my talk today is How I Learned to Prescribe Motivation Through Exercise to my patients for healthy longevity. Because we've heard a lot of different things of getting people to reverse aging and live longer. But the truth of the matter is the best drug we have, which works for every single person around the world, rich or poor, young or old, 100% efficacy with zero side effects, except it improves your health, is movement. And when we talk about healthy longevity, we need to start thinking about getting people out and getting people moving every single day. Our bodies are built to move, and we're going to talk about how I've learned how to do that over time. So my first question at a longevity conference, which has been intimated somewhat already, is are we overselling longevity? And I think the answer to that is we are overselling longevity. The whole idea of dramatically extending life expectancy sounds great and everybody wants to do it, but the truth of the matter is that at least for where we are at the current interface of science and health span, we are where we are somewhat. What we're not overselling is healthy longevity. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I think about this like the typical mid-50-year-old dude that comes to see me in my office in New York City who has a lot of disposable finance income and wants to bike faster in Central Park. And this guy is fully convinced that if he spends $12,000 on a carbon fiber Pinarello with all the most modern technology, he will go faster, despite the fact that he's 25 pounds overweight, despite the fact that he doesn't do much in terms of intensity training, despite the fact that he doesn't do much in terms of muscle building and cardiopulmonary fitness training. This guy wants to go faster on his bike, and he's fully convinced that buying this $12,000 bike is going to be the key to his success. And what I tell this guy is, yes, that's great you want to go faster, and I fully support your desire to make yourself the very best version of yourself you can be. But the truth of the matter is that it's 95% your body and maybe the last 3 or 4% the bike. And so I think where we are with longevity is people need to think about the basics first, and then if we want to start thinking about peptides or red light therapy or hyperbaric oxygen or certain supplements, okay, but the 95% are the things that get people out and healthy and moving every single day. But the desire to get people to think about longevity is nothing new. Ponce de Leon in 1513 set sail with the idea of finding the fountain of youth, ill-fated expedition. The quote-unquote Don't Die Summit series of Brian Johnson kind of really highlights the idea that if you do these certain things and you drop your body fat and you sleep 14 hours a day in a dark cave and you do plasmapheresis from your 20-year-old son and you do erectile monitoring of your penile function during the middle of the night, that you in fact will live longer. But the truth is we're all going to die, and so is he. And so the idea that we're going to dramatically extend life expectancy, probably not true. And we've heard the terms health span, lifespan kicked around. In the Middle Ages, you basically lived to a certain time, you got sick, and then that was it. In today's modern age, we've extended the health span, and we've extended the lifespan through all the things we've heard about. All the different scientific advances have helped us extend lifespan. What we're left with is this red slashed line, the lifespan health span gap, meaning people are living longer. Our goal is to keep them living longer as healthily as possible. I saw a guy just the other day, 92 years old. He comes to see me for injections in his knees, and he does great. He walks in Central Park almost every single day with his friends, and this guy is out really trying to narrow his lifespan, health span gap. He's going to live as long as he's going to live, but he's going to do that as healthily as possible. Now, where have we come in this whole idea of longevity? Well, I love this graph because it looks at what we've done. Now, we're here today talking about, and many are talking about in the longevity space. If you take these supplements and you do this kind of stuff, you're going to extend your longevity. And that's kind of the last little bit of this circle. But what we really know is that the major advances between the mid-1800s and mid-1900s made the biggest difference, right? So we had the invention and development of vaccines. I'll say it again, vaccines, which are tremendously important in extending and expanding lifespan. We had drugs, we had insulin, we had antibiotics, all of which made a big difference in getting people to live longer. So when we start talking about this, a lot of the work has been done already, and we kind of are where we are for the moment. Is there another big upslope with this curve in the future? Are we going to live to 130 years old? Maybe, but definitely we're not there yet, no matter what we've kind of heard or may think about. Now, my medical perspective is a lot about getting people to maximize their healthy longevity. During the day, I take care of people's aches and pains at Hospital for Special Surgery, which is the world's largest orthopedic hospital. We do all kinds of interventions around getting people's musculoskeletal system to work better. So tendon problems, joint problems, et cetera, to get people moving and moving around. But during the evenings and weekends, about 14, 15 years ago, I had the idea that I wanted to start an exercise community because I knew exercise was good for myself and my patients, but I wanted to get a way to prescribe that to them in a bigger way. So this is what that looks like now. And so for me, it was a progression between when I first started. The circle of medicine was when stuff is broken, we fix that broken stuff, and the circle of athletics, which is I go out and I do exercise and do the Boston Marathon every year to basically be healthy. Over time, I started to realize that I wanted my patients to be healthy like I was out moving around, and I could start different communities to get people out moving around. And now in my office, it's very much interrelated. Meaning if you come to see me for a medical problem, if your knees are arthritic and they hurt, once your knees are feeling better, we're going to talk a lot about how we get you out and moving and build your strength and reduce your symptoms and keep you out and moving. What kind of exercise you will do is a big piece of what we're thinking about. So to me, I don't love the term longevity. I love the term healthy longevity. That's what we're after. We're after making you maximize your health across your lifespan. And that comes in different ways. It comes in ways such as this. This is a patient of mine who's my downstairs neighbor in New York. She has 3 daughters, and the daughters were off in college, and she basically was out with her husband at a trip in Utah, and she rolled her ankle down a stair and fractured her ankle. Now, when she came in with her broken ankle, we fixed her ankle and she was fine, but she said, listen, I don't feel healthy. I don't feel at healthy weight. I don't feel healthy activity, and I want to change myself. And so over a period of about 2 years, she lost about 55 to 60 pounds. She started being active, and this is her a couple years later running a 5K with her daughters. That's healthy longevity. It doesn't show up on any chart, but that's healthy longevity. That's maximizing the healthy years of her life. Because we know that about 20% of health is genetics, about 20% is interface with the medical system, and about 60% is related to what we do. That was some of the early data published about 20 years ago by the CDC. More recently, we've had the study coming out on the elderly, about 1,700 people who live between the ages of 80 and 106 with no disease versus age-matched controls with more than 2 diseases. Most people get more than 2 diseases over the age of 80. And we would think that, all right, there must be something genetically superior about the people who've lived longer. In fact, not at all. There was no difference in their genome at all. They lived longer because of what they did with their lifestyle. So lifestyle makes a huge difference. And there have been different attempts to start thinking about giving data around evaluating someone's quote-unquote biological age versus their chronological age. And these are some of the metrics that have been looked at, including body composition, balance, flexibility, cognitive speed, HRV, and strength. Great metrics to give an idea of your quote-unquote chronologic age. Now, does that mean if you're actually 60, but your chronologic says you're 40, you're actually 40? No, you're still 60. However, it does mean that this is a metric that you can take, and much like your weight or your blood pressure, you can get an idea of where you are, an idea where you are the next year and the year after. So I think it's very valuable. And even here in Whoop, some great work done on trying to give this a number, a quote-unquote Whoop score. This was famously done with Ronaldo, who was if you don't know who Ronaldo is, you've got a problem. So Ronaldo was in his young 40s. His biological score was in his mid-20s, which makes sense. He's got amazing muscles and amazing fitness. It doesn't mean he's 26 years old, 27 years old, but the concept of putting together these physiologic markers ended up with a score which gave him a better idea of something to shoot for. Now, we know that exercise is tremendously beneficial for us. A lot of this comes from research done in the 1950s. We started looking at the association of exercise. This was the famous British train conductor study where basically they took people in the post office and the transportation system. Some people had active jobs, walking up and down getting tickets and delivering mail. Some people had inactive jobs. They literally just sat and sorted mail or drove the bus. And the cardiopulmonary outcomes of the people who had inactive jobs were worse than the people who were out walking every day. We now know that exercise works across the entire spectrum of the human body: neurologic problems, metabolic problems, cardiovascular, pulmonary, musculoskeletal. Multiple types of cancer are both treatable in some states and definitely preventable with routine activity as part of what we do. We started a seminar now 10 years ago called Prescribing the Medicine of Exercise to the second-year med students at Cornell. And we had just some of our faculty, and always a patient. This guy on the far left is a 77-year-old prostate cancer survivor he just did the marathon the year before. Idea being that he used exercise, and we wanted to teach the med students about getting their patients out and active to try and influence lifestyle. This guy in the middle here, another year, was an 89-year-old yoga teacher that taught yoga to people over the age 80. very inspiring guy, and was very inspiring for the med students to hear as well. So thinking about lifestyle is important, and even in our community, which I'll mention at the end, we've been running these fitness classes now for 14 years. This is Judy. Judy's 79 years old now. Look at those muscles, right? Judy does the New York City Marathon almost every year. She's on no medications. She's sharp as a tack, and she's moving well. Now, that is healthy longevity. And when we start thinking about that clinically, we start thinking about some of the things we have seen, including brain function, cardiovascular function, pulmonary function, muscular function, strength, bone density, body composition, and metabolism. Increasingly thinking about some of the effects of exercise on cellular hallmarks of aging. Things like genomic instability, telomeric attrition, the shortening of your telomeres. Many of these things which are kind of looking at and testing now, I think will be very helpful in the future as we recognize the cellular basis of what exercise can do. The problem is, we know it's great for you. The holy grail is getting people to do it, right? Because I'm guessing everybody in this room, you're a self-selected group and you're here because you already think about these things. But in fact, most of the country does not. So the question was, how can we affect change in a broader scale? And personally, how could I start thinking about that? And I hope my story is helpful for you when you start thinking about how you can affect change as well. Now, much like Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill, only to have it come back down, trying to get people to change their behavior is a very difficult thing to do, right? No matter who they are and what their behavior, it's getting behavior change to implement is very hard. But when it comes to fitness compliance, which is the subject of this book, I've been interviewing patients for about the past 4 years, thinking about what makes them compliant. How do they think about their compliance and what makes them compliant? And the idea is things such as fun. So if they're having a good time, it makes a huge difference. If there's a social effect, either in person or virtual, social contagion or in person makes a big difference. Variability of exercise makes a difference, as well as effectiveness of programming. These seem to be the things that make the biggest difference when we start thinking about changing people's habits. Because the idea is it takes about 3 months to change a habit. The hardest part is getting this tractor tire up off the ground. So if you see this little guy, he's getting this up off the ground, and he's going to roll it, roll it, roll it. There he is, psyched. His thing, getting that tractor tire off the ground, is the hardest piece of his equation, much like many people who struggle with getting people up to move. Once they establish that habit, it becomes much easier to do. I want to spend just a minute now talking about the importance of muscle and skeletal muscle, because this whole discussion of quote-unquote longevity and healthy longevity is predicated upon movement and muscle. Unfortunately, the slope here is downward for all of us, right? But if you commit to muscle building 3 times a week across your lifespan, you can maintain your functional muscle mass well into your adult and older adult life. I want you to think, I want everybody to be Judy, all right? I want you all to think about Judy in Central Park with those muscles. I want everybody in here and everybody on there to think about maximizing their inner Judy, because older muscles turn into fat, and fat is inflammatory. So the idea is that we want to take healthy muscle and build healthy muscle. I love the idea that we're kind of now coming to, which is that muscle not only improves functionality, so if somebody comes to see me with an arthritic knee or an arthritic back or a hip, I get them working on strengthening as a big piece of what they do, but also the importance of myokine function and the anti-inflammatory function of muscle. Muscle is an anti-inflammatory, so keeping your skeletal muscle, in addition to helping you store glucose in the form of glycogen, is anti-inflammatory. So thinking about building and maintaining and storing your muscle across multiple systems of the body is important, and all you have to do is look at this cross-sectional anatomy. The top is a 40-year-old triathlete. This is an MRI of his upper legs. He's got fantastic skeletal muscle, very minimal subcutaneous fat. The middle is a 74-year-old person who is very inactive, and you can see a very minimal muscle, a lot of subcutaneous fat, a lot of pro-inflammatory visceral fat as well. But the bottom is a 70-year-old who similarly is a 70-year-old triathlete. That's Judy, right? That's what I want you to think about. That's what you can do. Lastly, I just want to make a comment on intensity, because not only is the idea of push to do it every day, but it's to put intensity into your life. Intensity makes a difference, and it makes a difference for people even at their mid-80s. This was a study, small study published in Cell, looking at the effect of an intense exercise program over 12 weeks in people between the ages of 40 and 30 and 50 and 60 and 80. And surprisingly, the people between 60 and 80 had the biggest difference in terms of mitochondrial protein volume and functionality in a 12-week period of exercise, meaning that intensity made the biggest difference for people when they were 80 plus. So I have people going up the stairs in their 70s, in their 80s. Judy's doing burpees in the mud with all of us, right? That's what you should be thinking about when we start thinking about this. Intensity matters. So finally, for me, it was all about learning to prescribe exercise and learning to prescribe motivation. So 14 years ago, I had the idea to start this very small community, and we are now 14 years old and growing. So we started in 2010 with about 10 people in the basement of a gym. Then we grew to bigger classes in Central Park. We now get about 10,000 people per year moving in our area in different kinds of fitness classes, and it's been very instructive in terms of thinking about how we get people out and moving and going. So what I've learned from this whole process is that I think our effective longevity is probably just marginal, but I think our effect on healthy longevity is quite profound. The medicine of movement is incredibly powerful, and I think the integration of health and technology and fitness is very bright. To me, that's healthy longevity. Thank you very much.